Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Nancy Joseph, aka The Dynamic Doc. Welcome back to my channel. So I hope everyone is remaining safe during these unprecedented times, still dealing with these two pandemics, the COVID-19 pandemic and also a public health crisis of racism that has been plaguing us for a very, very long time. So these two things are still going on, still dealing with them, and I hope everyone is remaining safe and staying informed. Also, please, please, please make sure that you both register to vote and go ahead and rock that vote, your voice, and make sure that you're counted and you let your voice be heard. Early voting is going on right now in a lot of states, so just make sure that you're registered and go ahead and vote. So with that, we're going to go ahead and pick up where we left off in the last video. So this video, I'll focus on transitioning from residency to fellowship. So at the end of your residency, the last few months, you really should just be, wrapping up, making sure everything is good to go in terms of completing your requirements for graduating residency, but also making sure that you do all of the necessary paperwork to have all your ducks in a row so that you can transition to fellowship smoothly. Because just like when you were starting residency, starting fellowship, you have to fill out paperwork and making sure that you get a training license if you didn't already get that for residency. But also, even if you did, you may be going to a different state for fellowship, so you'll need a training license for that state, a training medical license. So that's one part of the paperwork. But of course, just onboarding paperwork that you would expect with any new position. So you just have to make sure you fill all that out, because just like you have a residency program coordinator, there's oftentimes a fellowship program coordinator, and they'll be in close contact with you, letting you know what they need, when they need it. Of course, you are maybe moving, going to a new place, so you want to make sure everything's good with your new lease, making sure that you can transition, meaning usually residency or really usually any medical training position often ends around June. Medical school oftentimes ends in May, but residencies oftentimes end in June, on June 30th. And then fellowships would start July 1st. So that can be difficult depending on how you've allocated your vacation days throughout the year. So when I finished residency, I had 2 weeks of vacation that I allocated for the last 2 weeks of residency, so that I wasn't, finishing residency on June 30th and rushing off to fellowship on July 1st, especially since oftentimes there's orientation that you have to do before starting fellowship. So I had those 2 weeks where I moved and I did like a kind of a graduation celebratory trip, and then fill out the paperwork I needed to do. I filled out the paperwork I needed to start fellowship, but also I needed to be at the location of my fellowship so I can go ahead and do the orientation that I needed to do. So you want to make sure that you stay informed in those timelines and you remain proactive, so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you're ending fellowship one day and the very next day, or even maybe ending fellowship on Friday and then Monday, or ending residency on Friday and then on Monday you're starting fellowship. That's very stressful. You definitely don't want that. So that's kind of transitioning into fellowship. Now, another note is that the duration of time fellowship, that varies. So oftentimes in primary care, the primary care subspecialties are 3 years. So if you did a pediatric residency, oftentimes the pediatric fellowships are 3 years. Same with internal medicine. Did an internal medicine residency, then your oftentimes internal medicine fellowships are 3 years. So oftentimes surgery, contrary to that, in contrast, surgery fellowships are oftentimes 1 year. So if you did an orthopedics surgery residency. Then you do, fellowship in spine, let's say, that's usually 1 year. So, there's a range usually between 1 and 3 years, how long your fellowship is. And that will determine the pace at which you do things or figure things out or figure the next step out while you're in fellowship. So for me, allergy immunology is unique in that you can come from either the pediatric side or the internal medicine side to do allergy immunology because unlike most fellowships, it's adult and pediatrics. It's combined. So oftentimes allergy immunology fellowship is combined with adults and pediatrics, which is why you can come from an internal medicine residency or a pediatric residency. So, if you are a pediatrician, if you pediatric trained, you went from seeing all pediatrics to now seeing people above the age of 25. And if you are internal medicine trained, you went from seeing all adults to now having patients that are under 18. And so that's a transition in itself, depending on which primary care specialty you came from. So, but oftentimes the fellowship class is mixed between some coming from internal medicine, some coming from pediatrics. And so you can lean on your colleagues to, in that situation, to just help you with that transition. So there's that. So the good news is that a lot of the requirements for fellowship is similar or are similar to the requirements for residency in a general sense. Meaning in residency, you are required to do a research project and a QI project. In fellowship, you'll be required to do a research project. Obviously, the subject matter in which you'll do it is more narrow because in residency, it was, a general thing, you were, let's say pediatrics. And so the subject matter that you can do your research in was more, you had more to decide through or pick from. Well, now you're in, fellowship. And so you've decided on whatever subspecialty. And so that's what your research is gonna largely focus on, a subject within that specialty, that subspecialty. So that is that. So another thing is, of course, the general rules apply. You'll definitely try to be a sponge, learn as much as you can, look up things when you're not sure or don't understand. And you'll be doing, a lot of inpatient too. So you'll be doing consults, that type of thing. And obviously when you do consults, you'll be focused on that one area because they'll be consulting you for a particular reason within, the realm of your subspecialty. So that's kind of the general idea, still going through different rotations within that subspecialty to get good exposure to that and different, procedures that fall into that subspecialty as well. So one of the very, very important things you want to make sure you remember when you do fellowship, you will likely be taking your primary care boards during that time. So that means that while you're usually within the first 6 months of your fellowship, you will also be studying for boards. So keep that in mind when it comes to knowing your schedule, what that's going to look like. You're going to get that ahead of time. What's that going to look like on your fellowship? Also, go ahead and get the paperwork and all that stuff together, to start fellowship. But you don't want to waste time in getting into that groove and that mindset to start studying, because oftentimes specialty fellowships, or not fellowships, but specialty boards are only once a year. Just that period of time. That is it. So you want to make sure that you are ready, because if not, you'll be waiting an entire year just to take it. So you want to make sure that you allocate your time appropriately, allocate your resources that you're going to use to study. Usually you would have already registered for it the latter months of your residency. And again, it's only offered usually a particular window of time in a particular month, once a year. So make sure you do that, because otherwise you'll be not only would you be waiting another year, but oftentimes you cannot get board certified in your subspecialty until you're board certified in your primary specialty. Meaning if you're pediatrics and you're doing a GI fellowship, you cannot be board certified in gastroenterology until you've obtained your primary care boards. So you'd have to do, and the example I've used, you'd have to pass your pediatric boards before you can move on to be able to do your gastroenterology boards. So yeah, so keep that in mind. That's very important. So on that note, stay tuned. The next video where I'll talk about boards in more detail and studying for them and, taking them during fellowship, that type of thing. In the meantime, just go ahead and check out my previous videos, and please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And also, please don't forget to vote. Your vote is your voice, so make sure you rock that vote. Be safe, be blessed. I'll see you in my next video.